All right, deep divers, if you're liking what we do here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives like this one. We're going into some really murky waters today.
Definitely murky.
Yeah. This one was requested by a viewer, and let me tell you, it's a doozy.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about Canadian billionaire Frank Stronach,
A name synonymous with horsepower.
both in the auto industry and on the racetrack.
Absolutely.
What you might not know, though, is that there's this dark cloud kind of hanging over this titan of industry.
There is.
18 charges of sexual assault.
Spanning 6 decades.
Buckle up, because this is a wild ride.
It is a wild ride. I mean, these allegations paint a really disturbing picture, and with accusations going that far back, it's not just a recent scandal.
No.
We could be looking at a pattern of behavior here that's gone unchecked for a long time.
Yeah, and that's what we're here to untangle today. We're going deep into a new documentary from CBC's The Fifth Estate.
The great source.
And this isn't like your average expose. This is firsthand accounts from alleged victims.
Wow.
And even Stronach himself weighs in. Talk about getting right into the heart of the storm.
You really get a sense of the human impact of these allegations when you hear it directly from those involved, especially the alleged victims. It goes way beyond the legal jargon and the headlines.
Okay, so for those who need a quick refresher, Frank Stronach, he's a big deal.
Huge.
Born in Austria, built his fortune founding Magna, the auto parts giant.
Yeah.
Also a major player in horse racing.
Big time.
And get this, at the time of these allegations, he was 90 years old.
That's a really crucial piece of the puzzle here. We're talking about a man who has been in positions of power for decades, wielding significant influence and wealth. That context is essential when we examine the accusations against him.
You know what's really eerie to me? Many of these allegations revolve around Stronach's businesses in Aurora, Ontario.
Okay.
Specifically his restaurant, Frank's Organic Garden. Employees describe a culture of fear there.
It's interesting how a place like a restaurant, a place meant for enjoyment and community, becomes this breeding ground for alleged abuse. It just goes to show how power dynamics can permeate seemingly ordinary settings.
It's unsettling, to say the least. And this brings us to one of the women who bravely shared her story in the documentary.
Okay.
Her name is Lee.
Lee.
And her account is just gut-wrenching. She alleges that Stronach raped her back in 1980 after an encounter at his bar, Rooney's.
And this is where we start to see the devastating personal toll of these allegations. It's not just about legal battles, it's about real lives shattered.
Absolutely. Lee describes going to Rooney's for her birthday. Not really her scene, but she went because her coworkers convinced her to.
Right.
And then Stronach allegedly gives her champagne, even though she told him she doesn't drink. Red flag's already right.
Huge red flag. It suggests a disregard for her boundaries and a potential attempt to manipulate the situation.
Yeah, and things spiral from there. Lee says the assault began right on the dance floor.
On the dance floor.
On the dance floor. He was holding her too tight. She tried to pull away, and then he assaulted her. I can't even imagine the fear and violation she must have felt.
That's horrifying. And it really underscores a common tactic in these types of cases, using a seemingly innocent environment like a dance floor to mask predatory behavior.
And it gets worse. Lee has no memory of how she ended up at his condo, but she remembers waking up to being raped.
Oh my gosh.
The trauma from that night, she says, made her suicidal for a while. She quit her job at the stables and even lost her passion for horses. Talk about life-altering consequences.
It's the heartbreaking reality of sexual assault. The trauma can really permeate every aspect of a victim's life, leading to feelings of shame, isolation, and even thoughts of suicide. It's a wound that runs deep.
Now, what's chilling is that Lee's story echoes another woman's account, Jane Boone. Both of their stories started at Rooney's, and both involve this massive power imbalance.
That's a critical observation when you see these recurring elements like a specific location and similar patterns of behavior. It really raises serious questions about the possibility of a larger network of victims.
Boone was just 19 years old.
19.
An intern at Magna.
Wow.
When she says Stronach, then 54, pressured her into having sex with him.
Oh, gosh.
She felt caught in a trap. Her driver, allegedly under Stronach's instruction, took her keys after a night of drinking and dancing, and she ended up at his condo.
That feeling of being trapped is a recurring theme in accounts of abuse, particularly when there's such a stark power differential. A 19-year-old intern versus a 54-year-old CEO. The imbalance is glaring.
Boone maintains that what happened wasn't rape,
Right.
but she still feels it was a horrible abuse of power.
That distinction is crucial. Even when an act doesn't legally constitute rape, it can still be incredibly damaging and exploitative, especially when someone in a position of authority uses their influence for personal gain.
Yeah, it's deeply disturbing. And remember, these are just two of the many allegations against Stronach. This documentary really opens a Pandora's box.
It does.
But we need to hear what Stronach has to say about all of this, right?
Absolutely.
He's denied all the accusations and even expressed confidence in being cleared in court.
Denials are a common response in cases like this. It's important to remember that they're often part of a larger legal strategy aiming to control the narrative and manage public perception.
So what does this all mean? We have multiple women coming forward with strikingly similar stories, a powerful figure adamantly denying any wrongdoing, and a legal battle that's bound to be complex and fiercely contested.
This case really is a microcosm of a much larger societal issue. It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about power privilege and how they can be used to silence victims and evade accountability.
Yeah.
It really throws a harsh light on the systems that are supposed to protect us.
Yeah.
When you have someone like Stronach with immense wealth and influence, it's like a different set of rules come into play.
It's almost like an invisible force field,
Yeah.
right? Like this barrier that victims have to push through just to be heard.
Right.
So let's talk about that. How does that level of wealth and influence impact victims who are considering coming forward?
Well, you're going up against someone with vast resources at their disposal. Top-tier lawyers, PR teams that can spin any narrative of private investigators digging into your past.
Whoa.
It's incredibly intimidating.
You have David and Goliath, but Goliath has a legal dream team and a bottomless bank account.
Exactly. Victims may worry about their reputations being destroyed, their careers jeopardized, their families harassed.
Oh my God.
They might question if anyone will even believe them.
Especially when going up against a figure like Stronach, who has cultivated a certain public image. It's like they're being silenced before they even have a chance to speak.
Yeah.
So how does this power imbalance then affect the way the public perceives these kinds of allegations?
It's a fascinating question.
It is.
There's often a tendency to protect powerful figures. People might doubt the accusations attributing them to financial motivations or attention-seeking.
It's like we automatically give more weight to the words of those with wealth and status.
Unfortunately, that's often the case, and it can make it incredibly difficult for victims to be taken seriously, to have their experiences validated.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential consequences for Stronach.
Okay.
What kind of impact could these allegations have on his businesses and his reputation?
The potential fallout is significant. Public companies, especially those closely tied to a founder's image, are vulnerable to this kind of scrutiny. Investors can get skittish, share prices can plummet, and business partners might distance themselves.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect impacting not just Stronach himself, but potentially countless employees and stakeholders.
Precisely. And then there's the legal battle itself. Even if he's ultimately acquitted, the legal fees, potential settlements, and the constant negative publicity can be incredibly damaging.
So beyond the immediate repercussions, what kind of broader impact do you think this case could have?
Well, this case has the potential to be a watershed moment. It raises crucial questions about the Me Too movement and its reach. Will this empower more victims to come forward, knowing that even figures like Stronach aren't untouchable? Will it force a societal reckoning with the ways in which power and privilege shield abusers?
Those are some hefty questions.
Yeah,
And they're questions we as a society can't afford to ignore.
we can.
This isn't just about Stronach, it's about systemic issues that permeate every level of our culture.
It's about holding those in power accountable regardless of their wealth or influence. It's about creating a system where victims feel safe and empowered to come forward. And it's about ensuring that justice is truly blind to status and privilege.
Man, we've been wading through some deep, dark waters in this deep dive exploring the allegations against Frank Stronach.
Yeah, it has been heavy, hasn't it?
It really has.
We've peeled back layers of power privilege and the alleged abuse that can fester in those shadows. This case is a stark reminder that even in seemingly glamorous worlds like horse racing and high finance darkness can lurk beneath the surface.
So as we reach the end of this deep dive, let's try to bring some of these threads together. What are the key takeaways from all of this?
Well, first and foremost, we have to acknowledge the seriousness of the accusations against Stronach. 18 charges of sexual assault spanning 6 decades.
Yeah.
That's not something to be taken lightly.
Right, and we can't ignore that chilling pattern that seems to emerge from the alleged victims' accounts.
No, we can't.
Multiple women with strikingly similar stories.
Yeah.
describe encounters that allegedly started at Stronach's bar Reni's
Right.
and often culminated at his condo.
It's like a blueprint for predatory behavior, and the consistency of those accounts, along with the specific details shared, makes them all the more compelling.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a random series of events. There's a disturbing method to the alleged madness.
And it all circles back to that immense power imbalance. We're talking about a billionaire CEO,
Yeah.
a man accustomed to getting what he wants,
Yeah.
allegedly preying on young women, some of whom were his employees. It's a classic case of exploitation.
It is, and that power dynamic is what makes this case so difficult and so important. It highlights how those with wealth and influence can create systems that protect them while silencing those who dare to speak out.
We heard Lay describe becoming suicidal after her alleged assault. She lost her job, her passion for horses, a sense of safety and trust in the world.
It's awful.
That's the devastating ripple effect of this kind of trauma.
Yeah, that's the human cost of these allegations. It's a reminder that behind the headlines and legal battles, there are real lives that have been irrevocably altered.
So where do we go from here? We've got a powerful figure facing serious allegations, a legal battle that's likely to drag on, and a society wrestling with the complexities of power, privilege, and accountability.
This case is a litmus test for our values. It asks us to examine our own biases, to listen to and believe survivors, and to demand a system that holds abusers accountable, no matter how wealthy or influential they may be.
Yeah, it's a call to action, really. We all have a role to play in creating a world where those with power and privilege are held to the highest standards of conduct, where victims feel safe coming forward, and where justice prevails.
This case isn't just about Frank Stronach, it's about us. It's about the kind of society we want to live in, the values we uphold, and the future we create.
You've heard it here, folks. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, and it's undoubtedly left us with more questions than answers. But hopefully it sparked some important conversations and maybe even inspired some action. Remember, knowledge is power. So what are your takeaways? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking deep dives.